All across America, there's something in the air. At a time of year when many try to escape it, there are some who seek out the freezing cold and embrace it. Because in order to play one of the world's hottest sports, you have to start with a cold sheet of ice. And that's just the beginning. The better you get at this game, the more it rocks. Curling is a sport of skill and strategy, where success depends on a smooth delivery and an iron will, and victory can be determined by the slimmest of margins. And that's the case here in the Twin Cities as this round-robin tournament draws to a close. Tonight, the U.S. men face Japan for the second time with a final tournament outcome on the line. Can this upstart group of young American stars take the final step towards the top prize, or will another nation celebrate on American ice? There's something in the air, but it's not the cold. The final night, the final Friday night of Curling Night. It's next on NBCSN. Welcome to another edition of NBCSN Curling Night, presented by the United States Olympic Committee. Once again, we are back in the glorious Twin Cities area of Minnesota. A look at downtown Minneapolis and the state capital in St. Paul. A winter wonderland for many sports outside at this time of year, but also the folks in this part of the country love to go inside and get their cold sporting flavor on. A look at Fogarty Arena and the Four Seasons Curling Club, side of the U.S. Curling National Training Center, serving as the host for this event as we get ready for Draw 6, final go-around for Japan and the United States in this event. Jason Knapp with 2010 Olympian John Benton. John, competition's been great, having the United States, China, Japan, and New Zealand all gathered together, and things have been close all the way through.
Yeah, we look at the women's standings here, and China has jumped out front. The U.S. needs to keep pace now. They need a big win here to even have a chance to win this event.
So the women certainly trying to figure out who's going to finish the top of the standings. As for the men, the Americans with a great Draw 5 win against New Zealand.
Yeah, the U.S. men really played well. They got a big 6-ender against New Zealand, which puts them in good position, but they have a lot of work to do against Japan.
6-1 the final tally for the United States against the Kiwis. So that sets up the way the standings look entering the final draw of this double round robin event. China, Japan, the United States, John, all in the mix here for the title.
It's really anybody's event to win, and China has come from behind and is now out front based on the head-to-head matchups.
Well, Japan, a rising profile curling-wise, the Morozumi brothers helping lead the way for the Japanese.
Well, these guys have played together for a long time. I had a chance to play against these guys in 2009 and 2010, and they certainly have the experience at the international level to get it done.
5th at the Worlds last year. For more of the matchup, let's check in with Tracy Wilson.
I spoke to Yuzuki Morozumi, the Japanese skip, and he told me that they plan to be very aggressive in this match. They want to put a lot of stones in play and force the Americans into making a mistake. U.S. skip Heath McCormick said that his strategy is to keep the middle open so that the hammer draw is available to him if he needs it.
Thanks, Tracy. Let's meet tonight's teams.
Heath McCormick, skip.
Chris Plies, third.
Joe Polo, second.
Colin Huffman, lead.
Yusuke Morozumi, skip.
Tsuyoshi Yamaguchi, third.
Tetsuro Shimizu, second.
Kosuke Morozumi, lead.
Well, ready to go. You look at the two skips, Heath McCormick and Yusuke Morozumi. And ready to start. Japan will be throwing red rocks, so the United States wearing red tops with yellow stones. And Japan has the hammer, that last shot advantage to begin.
Is that bag okay back behind that curtain?
Again, final draw here. Both of these teams in contention for the men's title. Which one can jump out to an early start and seize the advantage? Colin Huffman, 30-year-old from Seattle, ready to start off draw 6.
In the previous game, we saw Colin playing second. We heard him talk a little bit about playing different positions, playing lead today, and the skill set, the shots required are very different for the two positions. Throwing a lot of guards as a lead, you need to have a good sense of the speed of the ice and tracking that all the way through the game.
Here is Kosuke Morozumi. His brother Yasuki is the skip. Kosuke is the lead, so the brothers Morozumi kind of bookend this Japan rink.
This rock sliding in just a little deeper than Team Japan would have liked. You want to keep your rocks in front of the tee line, which is that line that bisects the rings there. When they slip behind the tee line, they actually become an advantage to the other team.
Here's the second of end number 1 for Huffman.
Line's good.
Grew up as a junior curler in Alaska.
Hard line. Really hard.
Hear them calling sweeping for line. That usually means that the rock is over curling. They want to get it past the guard, which they do. And this slides into the top 4 foot. It does over curl slightly.
Like the farther you go out or what? I think. Yeah, we are. But
So you see the rock coming in here, really curling hard at the end, and it's actually going to peek out the other side behind that guard.
Here's the second for Kosuke Morozumi.
Heard Tracy say that the plan for the Japanese was to get a lot of rocks in play. We're seeing this early. Just playing a freeze here, getting a little tap on the U.S. stone.
The United States against Japan. More to come on NBCSN Curling Night after this. NBCSN Curling Night is being brought to you by the United States Olympic Committee. For the latest deals on official Team USA gear, visit TeamUSAShop.com. And by the 2016 World Financial Group Continental Cup of Curling. Come see why Las Vegas rocks. It's a fine night in Minnesota. A look at the mighty Mississippi rolling through the Minnesota region of the Twin Cities. Well, John, ready for the action tonight for those just getting into the sport of curling? Take us through what we'll see.
Well, the scoring area is the most important piece, which are the colored rings that we see here. The hog line, you have to cross that with your stone to be in play, and the free guard zone is very important. Any stone ending up here in the first 4 rocks cannot be removed until we get to the 5th rock of the end.
Now, we've seen in some of the other competitions for the American men, they've traded single points with some of their other foes, but the potential here for some explosion of action in the first end. Joe Polo ready to go, the second for the United States in this game from Duluth, Minnesota. Joe, an Olympic bronze medalist for the United States in 2006. Part of that only American team ever to win an Olympic medal in the sport.
The U.S. playing a freeze of their own here to that back red stone. Pretty well thrown shot by Joe Polo. Leaves them in good position. They are slightly behind the tee line. So Japan going to follow suit.
Tetsuro Shimizu, 26-year-old. His father introduced him to the sport of curling when he was in elementary school. And Japan as a whole, one of those countries where this sport continues to emerge.
Playing a light tap here. Great shot. Taps the U.S. stone out of the 4 foot and rolls underneath the guard right on the button.
So fantastic effort for the Japanese team.
Sweeping this rock to hold it straight initially, then they're off it. Again, great position with that shot. Going to force the U.S. here to kind of clean up the front.
Joe Polo eyeballing his second effort of this opening end.
Great shot. Joe Polo making the run back double. Leaves the U.S. lying one. Nose to nose, and splits both Japanese stones out of the rings.
Power and precision there for Joe Polo and Team USA.
How'd that thing run? Line's good. Retoだけ。6まで。6。Line's good. No line, no line.
Front end with some early work, and now laying off.
Waiting for this rock to curl, needed to finish. Doesn't look like it's going to finish underneath that guard, so it's going to be exposed. And this is going to leave a hit and roll for the U.S. Trying to show some of the precision here. They want to hit this red stone and get a 1 foot roll to the left.
Is that enough though? I mean, this
Skip Heath McCormick laying the broom. And we'll see if Chris Plies, 27-year-old vice skip from Duluth, Minnesota, can deliver a key shot here for the United States in the opening end.
We've seen in earlier games that this is kind of a touchy area on the ice. Rocks can tend to run straight.
Whoa! Yep! Whoa! 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 Joe, go, 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 go!
Does make the hit and a slight roll, but not quite far enough.
Peter, who's a little up? Is that good board? A little up.
So the U.S. again playing the yellow stones, lying 2 for the moment, but Japan with the opportunity here to try and counter.
And Morozumi doesn't like the way this house is setting up for him, so he's going to go after these front stones, try and clean the center line up.
Shiyoshi Yamaguchi.
He's close, but only gets the 1.
So the guard is cleaned away. John, it seems like this is setting up potentially as a nice end for the U.S.
Yeah, they've got stones in a great position. They'll probably just go back and put this guard back. You see that stone just missing the U.S. stone in the top 8 foot.
Again, 2 of the teams fighting for the title here in this double round robin competition in the last piece of the puzzle, the last event.
Split the center line.
A match here for Japan and the U.S.
Really tight. You want to clean? It's just tight. Oh, line's good. You're not in. It's over curling. Whoa. Whoa.
Right off.
No.
It's all right.
Sit. Sit.
Not sure they're 100% happy where that ended up, John.
Yeah, you heard Heath say that it over-curled a little bit. It does cover the majority of the stone in the top 8 foot, but I think Morozumi now, he can see a little bit more of the stone in the top 4 foot. So they're going to go after it.
So the skip helping plan this shot for Yamaguchi, 30-year-old, and the third for Japan.
Makes a nice hit and roll there. Now it's looking like Japan may be in control position in this end.
Excellent shot for the Japanese third.
See them sweep this rock late. They waited a long time to make sure that that rock curled up.
So now Heath McCormick has his work cut out for him. Japan has shot rock, and it's undercover. Again, 8 ends here in our curling night event. Shorter time, and maybe more pressure here, especially with the opportunity for one of these teams to jump out to a big advantage.
Well, it's been a good first end. A lot of back and forth, trying to get that all-important roll underneath the guard. Now Heath McCormick being forced to play a run back, a defensive move.
Again, the 38-year-old lives in Canada, but representing the United States. 2012 national champ.
Gets them all moving, but he gets a really bad break. Leaves 2 Japan stones in the rings.
Wow, so the Japanese suddenly with a monster opportunity to have a big end.
You hear him call for sweep late here. That means the rock is over curling, and you just couldn't line that up any worse.
So now all the yellow United States stones out of the house. That 1 guard remains, but 2 red Japanese stones. And it's a red alert right now for the U.S.
You know, it's just been kind of that way for Heath in this competition. You know, he's made some really, really great draws and some good run backs, but every now and then it's just come back to bite him.
Here's the older of the Morozumi brothers, Yasuki. He picked up the sport after seeing it at the 1998 games in Nagano, where Japan competed for the first time at the Olympic Games and finished 5th.
And here's a mistake right away by Morozumi, needing to get around to lie 3. And there's really no reason for him to wreck on that guard. He could have put that rock just about anywhere in the rings to secure a 3-point advantage to start the game.
Like that? Yeah.
So I think the call here is going to be a soft weight hit on this rock in the back 8-foot. Need to hit that rock and get a little roll in front of the other red stone right here.
Like hack? Okay, that's fine.
And Morozumi would not be able to remove it then. It's a touchy shot, it's a delicate shot.
Here's McCormick's release.
Whoa. Yep. Hard! Really hard!
That's not a good sign. They need to get by the guard.
Whoa! Hard! Yeah! Whoa!
Roll left.
Makes a nice hit, but he doesn't get it out of the rings. The question will be, is it fully protected behind the guard? Or can Morozumi get at it? Really working that rock to get by the guard. Touches the other red stone as it's leaving the rings.
But didn't leave all the way, so the potential there for Japan, if it can remove that yellow United States stone, to put up a 3 spot here in the first.
It is fully behind the guard, but with the way Heath's rock curled, he should be able to get at this.
Last stone of the opening end. Yusuke Morozumi eyeballing it. Now calling for it.
Great shot.
And the Japanese love it. A big 3-point opening end for Team Japan in a critical spot against the United States, with the title in this tournament hanging in the balance. The Americans falling behind, and they'll work from a 3-point deficit after one end here on NBCSN Curling Night. A return to Minnesota. An NBCSN Curling Night presented by the United States Olympic Committee. Uptown in Minneapolis. And the United States looking for an upturn in its showdown with Japan. The Japanese getting 3 in the opening end. So the United States trying to play catch-up curling here as action is underway in the second end. Jason Knapp and 2010 Olympian John Benson with you. And this second stone for the Japanese third, Yamaguchi.
Being down by 3 early, U.S. is likely to play more aggressive than they had planned. Try and keep some stones around and get back in the game right away.
You don't have to move it very far, You can get there. I think we can get there for sure, right?
You like
Is that red one way higher or no?
And the United States playing the yellow stones.
Yeah. It's like back line.
Japan has shot right now.
Yeah, just, I don't know, just back 4.
Okay.
You can throw.
So they're looking to come through this port,
So if we're sweeping it, to tap it out.
try and tap out that yellow stone. Got to squeak through that hole.
Little big. Back
Chris
line.
Plies
Whoa.
with help from his sweepers, hoping to navigate that narrow opening.
Whoa!
Whoa, off. Right off.
Got to get through the hole.
Whoa! Right off.
He's close. He's through. Great shot. Wow.
Threading the curling needle. Excellent effort for Chris Plies and Team USA.
Staying off of it, making sure that it curls, gets through the port, gets a nice hit and roll, pushes that rock just far enough to lay 1 and 2.
Right off.
Colin, get in there. Get in there.
Hard, Joe. Go, go.
Don't always get those 42-pound pieces of granite just exactly where you want, but the United States happy with that result.
So often I look at the game and I say, how do we even do this? You know, it's 140 feet away that you're taking that piece of granite and sometimes putting it in a spot no bigger than a foot.
So the United States coming through with a precision shot. Now the pressure back on Japan. Japanese do have that 3-point advantage after a terrific opening end, but the United States poised to take some, if not all of that advantage back.
Morozumi trying to play a run back double here, and he just misses. They swept that rock, and they needed to be off of it to get the double. We watch the replay. They're off of it late, hoping that it curls up, and not quite enough.
A little bit of an almost feeling for
Path's good here. Speed's
Yasuki Morozumi and Japan.
Right next to it. We just need full top 8 to be third, right?
Full 8.
Yeah. The speed's good here.
Speed should be good.
Yeah, speed's good.
Now the United States going through their process.
They'd like to get a rock in this position. Full top 8 is what Heath called. They want to lay 3. The other option would be to hit the redstone in the back 8 foot to lay 3. But that would leave Morozumi with a draw.
Line's pretty good. Wait's
Easy.
close. Got
Easy.
room. Whoa if you can.
Off.
We can wait. Whoa.
Line's good.
Gotta move. Whoa. Say
you're
we
good.
can go. Whoa, whoa.
Wait's fine. Wait's
Whoa.
good.
Close. You're good now.
Whoa.
You're
Whoa.
good now.
Just
Need this
top
rock to
8.
curl.
Top 8.
there.
Top 4.
All the way around. A little deeper than they wanted, but it's fully buried. That's a pretty good effort by Heath.
Okay.
So the U.S. does lie 3. And Japan down to its final stone of the end.
U.S. in good position to get 3 right back. Morozumi's going to look to freeze down to the U.S. stone that Heath just threw right here and try and force the U.S. to take 1 point.
And this Japanese group, as you look at the stones in the house, the Morozumi brothers, you mentioned they learned the sport after Japan hosted the Olympics in '98 in Nagano. The curling competition specifically was held in the hometown of the Morozumi brothers in Kuruizawa. So up close and personal with the sport, they got hooked, and now they perform internationally at a high level.
Waiting on this rock to curl. By the guard. Want to freeze it right to the face. And that's a good shot. Going to be very difficult for the U.S. to get in for more than two. There is a draw still there for Heath to be able to get closer than that red stone of Morozumi to get his two. But I don't think there's a shot for three here any longer.
So that yellow stone of the United States is shot.
Like heavy board then, or?
Yeah.
Heath McCormick working his way back to the hack. Get ready to try to figure out a way for the United States to
Firm board.
enhance their scoring potential here in the second end. Japan getting 3 in the first, and the U.S. trying to counter with a big number here in the second.
Sweep it right past that guard.
So based on the broom, Heath is not going to throw the draw. He's going to try and clip just a piece of that Japanese stone and try to score 3 here.
Is that decision based on the fact they're down 3 at this point?
It might be. This isn't the greatest opportunity for 3, but it's possible.
Right off.
Waiting on this, waiting on this. Catches a piece and moves it a bit, but not quite enough.
And the United States hoping for 3 with that shot. They'll take the 2 and get on the board. Heath McCormick and Team USA with 2 in the second, but they trailed Japan 3-2 on NBCSN Curling Night. Any night is a good night for NBCSN Curling Night, including one with a full moon. It's been a full house, so to speak, so far. 3 for Japan in the first, 2 for Team USA in the second. As we pick up action in the third end, Jason Knapp, John Benson, 2010 United States Olympian in curling. And here's Colin Huffman, who hopes to make the next Olympics in 2018 for Team USA, part of this high-performance squad for the United States competing in this event.
Go for line as well.
Seen a lot of rocks in play the first couple of ends, Jason. I expect to see that continue.
All you got. Get it back to center.
All the center line.
In the United States, setting that guard maybe to start that trend. So we've got a lot of points, first 2 ends, John. Talk about seeing a lot of rocks in play. Any thought for one of these teams to kind of scale it back a little bit, be a little bit more passive after all the aggression we've seen early?
Well, you're usually looking for a 2-point lead before you get more conservative in the game, and it's early yet. I expect that Japan's going to keep that trend going, try and get lots of rocks in play to get that 2 or 3 point advantage again, and then maybe dial it back, start throwing more hits.
Another first from Kazuki Morozumi.
Trying to get underneath that guard, over curls a little bit, and leaves another center guard, which is to the advantage of the United States.
Colin Huffman with his second.
Top 8.
Line's good.
Yep.
Line's good.
We're there.
Okay, wait only.
Line's good. Room.
Top 8.
Ton of room.
Top 4. Top 8.
Try and get this rock around, hidden behind cover.
Okay, Colin.
Not finish it all.
I don't know.
It's wide open.
fine.
You hear Colin say it's wide open. That rock not finishing behind the guards like they wanted it to.
See if Japan can capitalize on that little bit of an off shot for Team USA.
This rock curling. They'll get the hit and the roll behind cover.
Well executed by the Japanese squad. Well, for the United States, the lineup continuing to shift a little bit throughout this event. Colin Huffman played second earlier in the event. Tonight, he'll be the lead for Team USA.
That's probably the hardest part about this new setup for me. Also for me, I'm playing multiple positions, which I've never done before. Probably the biggest thing about curling is everyone playing their role. One of the most important things about being a good curling team is everyone knowing their defined role and really being able to settle in and perform just at those things that they need to do. So as a lead and as a second, you have very, very, very different responsibilities. And so to play like multiple positions in a weekend is tough. But I mean, one of the things for me that I've always felt was a strength was my versatility, and you know, it's been a good way that I could kind of show that off and show that I can play every position.
Versatility, flexibility, and balance, hopefully leading to success for the United States in a critical match against Japan. But we're underway here in end number 3. More stones and scores ahead on Curling Night. Action continuing here in end number 3. Heath McCormick in the United States trailing Japan 3-2. And the action has intensified here in the third end. Chris Plies with a key shot for the American.
Chris throwing a run back here. Team USA a little worried about a couple of Japanese stones in the rings.
That's really good. Yeah.
And they're happy with that outcome.
That actually might be better than anything. Yeah.
That red Japanese rock still shot.
Actually, Joe, that might be the best case scenario.
Pretty darn good.
Pretty good. Real good. To not get either of ours out, to change the angle on that tap, too.
Here the U.S. kind of verifying and validating what they did with that last shot.
Yeah, Colin's right in that they changed the angles on a number of things with Chris Plies' stone there. See Morozumi lining up a tap on the yellow stone. All he wants to accomplish here is moving their shot stone back and leaving the yellow stone in the top 4 foot, get their shooter to roll underneath the guards.
Tsuyoshi Yamaguchi trying to help the Japanese cause with this rock.
They're trying to unlock that yellow stone, and that's a great effort. You see now that the Japanese, if they have the chance, can now get rid of the yellow stone later in the end.
Heath McCormick, the U.S. getting 2 in the last end without the hammer in this end, trying to find a way to neutralize Japan or maybe steal a point.
No roll, no roll. Real nice. Okay, that's good.
Hit and roll there for Heath. It's a good effort.
Again, Japan still has shot, and you see the signal to clear away that yellow United States stone.
Time for Morozumi to make a hit and roll of his own. You notice that most of these shots are thrown softer. They want to keep their own shooter around, and the way to do that is to throw it relatively soft, just enough to move the opponent's rock out of the rings if possible. They're happy with that.
Nice.
Laying 2.
Nice, nice.
So Japan with 3 in the first. Again, they have the hammer here in the third. And the opportunity maybe for another big end.
Watch this rock come in. They tap the stone and roll under the guard and lay 2.
Last stone for the U.S. coming up, John. What's Heath McCormick think?
Well, he's got a couple of options here. He could play a hit on this red stone in the back. He could throw a freeze to the other red stone here on the right-hand side of the forefoot.
And the other thing, I can try this. If it rolls out, the draw is probably the harder than if I just nose it, right?
You threw that same shot into the first.
Right.
And it curls super hard around this.
Yeah. Is it edge on edge? Yeah.
Basically.
Now they're looking at this double run back. They could hit this red stone here and drive the yellow straight back.
I think we should play that, then I'll play that.
Again, 3-2 here, Japan. Does score and time in this 8-end game factor into this decision for the U.S.?
It does. They really don't want to give up another deuce and go down 3.
Yeah.
And they definitely don't want to give up 3.
You good with this?
Again, Chris Plies making sure that his skip, Heath McCormick, has confidence in the decision that they've made.
So how much? So like control, normal. Okay.
They are throwing the run back here. Red to yellow to red.
See if the 38-year-old can execute with help from his sweeping tandem in front.
Whoa. Yep.
Joe Polo and Colin Huffman.
Whoa, right off.
Whoa.
Right off. Yep.
Whoa.
Whoa.
Whoa. Yes.
And they just rub the guard, playing that very tight to the guard. And this is big trouble for the United States now.
Potential disaster here for Team USA.
They really needed to get by that guard, staying off of it. I don't think they needed to play it quite that tight to the guard.
So the guard wrecking the plans for the U.S. to slow down Japan here in this third end. And now the Japanese, while the U.S. can only watch, are discussing ways to maximize here.
The only thing the Japanese need to do is outcount this yellow to score 3. Bring the draw right in and break this game wide open.
So Japan striking first with 3 in the first. The U.S. got 2 back when it had the hammer for the first time of the second. But now Japan with that last shot advantage here in the third. And the chance to put up a trio of points again. And as John mentioned, really crack this critical contest in the overall team standings wide open. They like it.
And this is good.
They should like it. For the second time in the opening 3 ends, Japan dents the U.S. for 3 points. And it's a 6-2 advantage for the Japanese in the fight for first overall in the team title of NBC Curling Night. 6-2 Japan over Team USA. NBCSN Curling Night rolling on, presented by the United States Olympic Committee. Nighttime in the Twin Cities region and inside the Four Seasons Curling Club at Blaine, Minnesota. The U.S. in a pickle, trailing Japan 6-2 in an important match in the sixth and final draw of this team event between the United States, Japan, China, and New Zealand. Fourth end, and Japan with its latest stone.
Well, Jason, we talked early on about what happens once you get a lead. And with a sizable lead, Japan now is going to try and keep things a lot cleaner, throw a lot more hits. That Peel an example there.
Yep, 10.
Just limit the scoring chances for Team USA.
Watch the concentration for Chris Plies.
Gotta curl. Gotta curl a mile. Yep, go. All the way. All the way. Hard. Hard.
Go.
Hard.
John, you talk about Japan having the lead and protecting that. If you're Heath McCormick dealing with only an 8-end game, how does that affect your strategy when you're playing catch-up?
Well, right now, Heath really has to place guards, and it's really a cat and mouse game. You're trying to get Japan to really waste a lot of rocks throwing peels. That guard there by Chris Plies trying to guard the one rock in the rings. And Japan now going to go after it. But the big thing is that when you have the hammer, you want to have at least one guard out in front of the rings or one rock in the rings. So Heath is still pretty happy. He's going to be able to come around this guard, get one in position to score.
Try on right here.
But as you alluded to, especially from this vantage point, as opposed to the first three ends, things are wide open as Japan has really cleared the area to try to limit the scoring, as you mentioned. Here's the second from the United States, third, Chris Plies.
Time looks good. You sure?
You know, the mistake that
Wait, it's close.
people new to the sport or novices might make in this situation is to get worried about those Japanese stones in the house and try and hit them out. Well, it's a lot harder to keep your rocks in play when you're throwing hits. So you really want to keep drawing. You want to keep putting rocks in positions, forcing Japan to try to remove them. And hopefully you get a mistake along the way and you can capitalize.
Japan lying one in this emerging nation in curling. Fifth at the Worlds last year. The team didn't qualify for the Sochi Olympics. Both teams able to qualify for the Worlds in Nova Scotia. And again, China, Japan, they've really been elevating their profile of late.
Well, they've invested a lot in the game of curling. I think a lot of the Asian countries as well as the Europeans, they see the opportunity for medals in the game.
Of course, the next Olympics headed to Korea in 2018.
Nice hit and stick there by Team Japan. Chris Plies' rock hit over curled. It got under the guard, but it actually came out the other side.
I think I agree with you.
So now Heath McCormick is actually forced to play a hit. He needs to get that Japanese rock off of the button. Tough to generate offense at this point in the end. He'll be looking to hit and roll here. But even if he makes the roll,
Weight's good. Yep.
odds are the Japanese will be able to use one of their own stones in the rings run it back onto the U.S. stone.
Hard!
Really got to go.
Hard!
Japan watching just as intently as Heath McCormick of the U.S.
Makes the hit and the roll, but it rolls too far. Leaves Japan lying to.
U.S. does have the hammer here in the fourth end, but Japan, again, the opportunity to continue to put the heat on the U.S. team.
The discussion here, Jason, is where can Morozumi put a stone to prevent the U.S. from being able to score one? Or at least put the highest degree of pressure on Heath McCormick to get his one. A lot of discussion about where to put the broom. Looks like they're going to try and draw into the 4-foot underneath that guard. If Morozumi can put a rock into this position here, you can see he'll shrink that scoring area down to about a 2 or 3 foot circle.
And that would be for Heath McCormick of the U.S. just to get one in the end, which would be a disappointment with the hammer.
Great shot of the release there. You see how subtle and soft the release is. It's really not a shove or a push. Most of the momentum being driven by the push off with the leg. And just a little light, he wrecks on the front guard. So Heath McCormick will have an opportunity here to get in for 1 point. That scoring area is a lot bigger than 2 or 3 feet now. Just needs to touch the 4-foot.
I think so, yeah. I mean, it's just like an inch high, right?
Inch low.
Or inch low, I mean, yeah. Right?
Yep.
Seen this a few times now. Heath could throw a draw on the right-hand side of the sheet and take his one. But he and Chris have talked it over, and they're going to try and hit this red rock and make a double takeout for 2. This is not a standard double takeout. As you can see, he needs to just barely get by the yellow stone in front of the rings to make the double.
The Americans down 4, approaching the halfway point of this 8-end game. So trying to be aggressive here and get multiple points to close the gap on the Japanese. Last stone of this end.
Whoa, 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 whoa.
Little higher degree of difficulty with some risk.
Whoa. Just an inch.
Catches a piece of it. Is he going to push it far enough? No. Great effort. You see the frustration there from Colin Huffman.
Now the United States that close to getting 2 with the hammer. They'll settle for 1. Japan has the lead, and the Japanese get the hammer back in the next end. NBCSN Curling Night is being brought to you by the 2016 World Financial Group Continental Cup of Curling. Come see why Las Vegas rocks. And by USA Curling. Support your national team by visiting www.usacurl.org. Here in Minnesota, we are halfway through our featured match tonight on NBCSN Curling Night. Another magical looking evening in Minneapolis. NBCSN Curling Night continuing in this match between Japan and the United States. Reaching the halfway point, Jason App, 2010 Olympian John Benton with you. Action aplenty here, John, in this latest edition of NBCSN Curling Night.
Well, we've seen tons of rocks in play in the first few ends. Heath McCormick making one critical mistake in the first end and leaving Morozumi this delicate little shot, a little hack weight takeout for his 3 in the first.
So Japan with a big opening end, but the United States executing and efficient and pulling off a wonderful shot to get their deuce in end 2.
Yeah, another soft weight hit, this time from McCormick. Thought he might be able to get 3 out of this, hit it exactly how he wanted, but it catches their stone in the forefoot, only giving them 2.
The U.S. on the board, but then Japan with another big end in the third.
Yeah, just again, one mistake by Team USA led to this open draw for Morozumi. Well swept right into the forefoot to open up a huge lead.
6-2 after the second 3-point end of this game for Japan. Then the U.S. with the hammer back, but not able to get exactly what they wanted.
This was a great shot by Heath. I don't know that you can throw it any better. I kind of thought he would have gone for the draw for one. Almost makes this perfect, but doesn't move that Japanese stone far enough.
So it's 6-3 halfway through this game. Tracy Wilson catching up with the U.S. skip.
Down by 3, Heath. What is the plan to get back in the game?
Well, yeah, we got to go ultra aggressive now. Just disgusting how those first 4 ends went. I mean, we're playing pretty good, just unbelievably bad breaks in the first end and in the third end. So, and in the fourth end there, not to get 2. So, yeah, we just got to go ultra aggressive and see what we can do.
Thank you.
Heath McCormick, the leader of the U.S. team, trying to be a leader at home when he's home.
I have a young family, a for the most part, very understanding wife that is great when I'm away. And yeah, we're on a 3-week in a row stretch where basically home on Sunday night or Monday, leave on Wednesday or Thursday. So it can be difficult for sure. Certain times it can be very, very trying from my business perspective. I'm fortunate that we have a family business, so I can kind of get away from that when I need to be and go in on nights and weekends when I'm home. The Olympics is obviously the ultimate goal, and it's the big cherry, and it's the reason why I'm doing what I'm doing at this point. Yes, we want to have great results at the World Championship. My wife sometimes says, why do you need to be going 3 weekends in a way when the Olympics are 3 years away? But it's all about building team rapport, team confidence, and I think that's where we're headed.
So many sacrifices for these athletes and their friends and family in this Olympic quest. Right now, the quest to come back in Japan in this game. NBCSN Curling Night, presented by the United States Olympic Committee. Back in Minneapolis to look at that great spot of town. We are in Blaine, Minnesota, at the U.S. Curling National Training Center. Colin Huffman at the top of the telecast talking about playing different roles. He's doing well in the lead spot tonight, John.
He is 97% at lead, positioning his rocks well.
It's got to be heavy. It's not curling at all. Okay.
It's an under-heralded spot at lead.
Looks like it's picking.
But it's so important, especially if you're behind like this, that the lead stones are in the correct spots.
U.S. down 3 with 4 ends remaining. Again, an 8-end game for the U.S. and Japan. 2 teams vying for the overall title in this double round robin. This is the 6th and final game of the competition for both.
And this is one of those matches where the shooting percentages may not tell the story. The U.S. has really played very well. It just had a couple of bad breaks, unfortunately, for Heath McCormick.
Heard the interview with Heath, with Tracy Wilson, the frustration level is there, especially in this competition. It's the last game. And things aren't going your way. We'll see if they can put that aside and focus in on the task at hand, and that's finding a way to come back.
Right up, right up. Big line.
3-point lead it's not insurmountable, but you are running out of time
Too much stick.
with just 4 ends left.
Sit.
That rock slipping into the rings. At lead position, when you're behind especially, you really want to keep those rocks in front of the ring so that they can't be removed. That's that free guard zone. So Japan will take this opportunity to get rid of that U.S. stone.
In the second for the Japanese lead, Kosuke Morozumi, the younger of the Morozumi brothers.
You hear the sweep call from the Japanese there. We've mentioned in earlier broadcasts, most of the international teams using English for their sweep calls.
Discussion points usually in their native language, but once they get in the business of working the stone, they are shouting out familiar terms.
I like going around. I do too.
Well, the United States discussing what to do on this shot, and while their conversation continues, we'll step aside. Break time here on Curling Night. Just the skip stones left here in the fifth end, and this is a major moment in the game. The United States down 3 to Japan, and the Japanese have the pressure fully applied to Team USA again.
He might just freeze on us.
In poker terms, for Team USA, this is pushing the chips all in. Heard Heath say at the halftime break that they were going to go ultra aggressive, taking lots of risk at this point. Late in the game, they have to steal.
Like this?
I don't hate it.
Okay.
We're going to have a center guard no matter what.
Right. Just hack. I'm trying to go under.
Going to play a soft weight hit, just hack weight, meaning enough weight for his shooting stone to travel to the far end hack.
Heath McCormick, 63% in the first half of this game.
Yep.
And he's really played much better than that. He just had a couple of bad breaks early.
Whoa. 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 Sit.
He's all over the rock in the top of the rings. He wanted to hit that rock that's closer to the forefoot. And this is a huge, huge opportunity for Team Japan now. Trying to decide who's closer between all those rocks in the 12-foot rings. It does look like Japan's laying 2. So the question is how to lay 3 in this situation. He could actually lay 4 by hitting that yellow stone in the 12-foot, or he could draw into the 4-foot here. Just lots of options. My guess is he's going to hit the yellow stone. Indicating there that he likes the draw a little bit better.
Either way, 3 or 4 at this point. Either result is potentially devastating here for the U.S.
Yeah, it would all but put the game away for Japan to score 3 or 4 here. So from a strategic standpoint in this situation, I prefer to try to stay away from the 4-foot. I don't want to give Team USA anything to freeze to, anything to tap back, which is going to create problems for me. You see the one red guard out in front of the rings there. That's the only impediment in the way for Team Japan. Looks like they're going to play the draw here. If they're able to get to the top 4 foot, top 8 foot, it's not going to be a horrible position for them.
Yusuke Morozumi. See his numbers not much better than Heath McCormick's, his fellow skip of this competition, but Japan has capitalized in the proper spots and the chance to do so again here in the 5th end.
Well, Morozumi's mostly struggled with his draws. Hit a couple of guards early in this game. And that's right where they want to place that rock. The question is, can Team USA follow them down? See how well hidden that is.
Freeze just to the inside of that thing. Right here.
Yeah.
He's
You
forced,
play the
right?
tap, it'd be pretty
Tapping
tough for
this
him to get his
one,
out.
for 2. Good shot.
Even in the pressure of trying to figure out how to get out of this jam, Chris Blyes with the sportsmanship to recognize that was a quality effort from Japan, but the U.S., another big spot for the U.S. to try to find its way out of.
Yeah, another one up there. Otherwise, he just slashes it.
Well, it is a Scottish game, and a lot like golf, a lot of etiquette and fair play rules. It's not uncommon to compliment your opponent for a great shot like that.
Don't move it, right?
Hopefully, Heath can follow him with one of his own.
Yeah, the U.S. would love to hear some praise back for the Japanese if they can play a good shot. 6-3 lead for Japan in the 5th end. They have the last shot hammer advantage. The U.S. trying to limit the damage.
Something interesting here. The Japanese played their last draw down the center line to get to the position that they're in on the 4 foot. Heath's coming the other way. He could have come in the same way as the Japanese and to make this shot. And this is not going to curl up enough. And that's going to be wide open. This spells big trouble. Japanese should be able to come down and hit this yellow stone if they get a little roll. This is big trouble for the United States.
Well, 3 in the first for Japan, 3 in the 3rd for Japan, and the Japanese eyeballing another 3 here in the 5th.
You get a good look at it there. He's just got to clear the red stone sitting out in front of the rings.
Didn't finish. It's not finishing hard enough.
Yeah, because all the guards, Colin had one, I had one.
Talking about what might have been in this end for the U.S. And Yusuke Morozumi trying to finish off what could be for Japan, and that could be almost a clinching end in this game.
Looking for his 3rd 3 of the game. Right on the nose. Taps it back, and it's good enough for 3.
So Japan does it again. A trio of triples for the Japanese and a 9-3 advantage through 5 ends in an 8-end game. 2 teams battling for the title at this event on NBCSN Curling Night. And Japan with a hammerlock on the game. End 6, Down 6, something you never want to hear in the sport of curling, but that's the situation for the United States against Japan, two teams vying for the title in this NBC Curling Night Series. And the U.S. really has to come out firing here against the Japanese.
Again, for the U.S., it's going to be a matter of keeping as many rocks in play as possible. You're not going to see them remove any Japanese stones. In fact, here, Heath just looking to tap that Japanese stone to the back of the rings, kind of create a wall back there.
Chris Plies, the third for the U.S., continuing the play here in the 6th end.
Back four.
In the United States, starting this last draw of the competition, tied with both China and Japan for first place in the quest of the overall team title.
Hard! Hard!
Trying to get this tap, this rock curling a little further than they wanted to.
That's not bad.
It's an okay result. The rock rolls underneath the guard.
No ad there.
Well, as this match goes on, the other match in the final draw, China and New Zealand, they're tied at 3 through 5 ends. If China wins that game, it wins the competition because the Chinese have the tiebreaker advantage over both the U.S. or Japan.
Yeah, the first tiebreaker is head-to-head. China has split their matches with both of these teams, Japan and U.S. So then it goes to draw shot. Each team throws a draw to the button for hammer in each game, and they accumulate the best 5 of 6 distances from the center pin, and China holds that tiebreaker over both teams.
And their shots are the closest combined to this point. For the U.S. right now, they're not worried about tie-breaking scenarios. They're worried about kind of breaking this end open to see if they can do what Japan has done. That's put together a 3 or 4 point end.
Well, that would be key here. If they can get a 3, it gets them at least within striking distance for the last couple of ends. It's still a tough task for the U.S. at this point, being down 6. That's a great shot by Chris Plies.
3 in the house for the United States.
This is the kind of offense that Team USA needs to generate right now. Perfect weight, curls up. Taps the Japanese rock out.
So now a big spot for Japan. Again, sometimes protecting a big lead is a difficult task.
Well, you see those 2 stones paired up on the right-hand side of the forefoot. Those are the difficult pair for the Japanese. So they're going to run this red rock straight back and try and get multiple rocks moving out of the rings. Try to limit the damage. These run backs are not really an accuracy shot. You would think that they are, but you really just want to get it close and throw it hard and let your sweepers hold the line for you.
Yusuke Moritsumi watching his sweepers go to work.
Gets 2 rocks moving. That's a great shot to clean it up.
Well, we've seen great offense in this game from Japan. Now, good defense.
Almost right on the nose. Gets a little lucky bounce off the top rock. And leaves the U.S. sitting 1.
He's going to hit this open one no matter what, right? If we make this good. Shot. if we go half under.
Just Christmas tree right here.
I think I'd rather play for 3 than just.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, we have to, right?
And that's the only way, right? You just hope he thins the top one or thins this one.
Yeah, okay. I like that.
Heard Chris Plies with one of the curling terms not commonly used, but it's called a Christmas tree, where you're actually creating an angle where it's not easy to get both rocks out of play. So it's actually kind of an upside down Christmas tree of sorts.
No tinsel or ornaments, just stones would be the important part of this tree for the United States.
And the idea is to just kind of tuck half of your stone underneath the guard. So you're leaving half of each yellow stone exposed.
Top 12, top 8.
Okay. Line's good.
Line's good. Whoa.
You got room. It's got to move. Whoa. Got to be here, though.
Whoa.
Well, it's a curl a bit.
We're there.
Oh, that's good. Right where it ends up. That's fine. Oh, right off.
It's curling in. Just a little deeper than they wanted, but it's in a good spot.
Just wanted to cover just a piece of it.
A little bit of a crooked tree there for Team USA.
Maybe missing a branch.
So what's next?
This is an interesting call by the Japanese. You would think that they would hit this rock here that's in the wide open. They can see all of it. Try and limit the damage. If they gave up 2 here, it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. They'd still be up by 4. But they're actually going to go after this rock that Heath McCormick just threw. The danger here is that it's almost fully protected. He could clip the guard out front and end up giving up 3.
Heath McCormick in the U.S. with a deficit this big, you need to play well, but sometimes you need help from your opposition to come all the way back.
And they're sweeping this right away. This is a mistake.
Oh, does tick the guard, and now it's wide open for the U.S. to draw for 3.
I'm just shocked that they went after that.
Wow, so the U.S. looking like things were over, but now here in the 6th, opportunity knocks.
See, he just grazes that guard. Just surprising. You know, you hit the open stone there, you give up 2, you're up 4 with a couple ends to go. And now you've given Team USA a little life as long as they get this 3rd point in.
You got backing.
Need it. I mean, gotta go.
Colin Huffman a little worried. Putting a lot of pressure on that broom early in the shot to make sure they get their 3.
And they do with an assist from the Japanese miscue. Heath McCormick in the U.S. still breathing, but down 3 with 2 ends left. Action aplenty in this game between Japan and the United States, scoring in every end, including 3 for the United States. If they could get another 3 in this end, we'd be tied to the 8th. Jason Knapp and John Benson.
Not curling at all.
In Japan and the USA in a 3-way tie in this final draw of the competition. China now has a lead on New Zealand in that other final game in the men's side of things. If China wins, they seal the title, having the tie-break advantage. But we'll see how that plays out as we watch how this one finishes up.
2 ends left to go. The U.S. without the hammer really need to establish lots of rocks. And the Japanese, of course, want the exact opposite. 3-point lead in the game of curling going into the last couple ends is a really good position for any team. Your win rate is probably up in the 90% range.
Get the sense that the U.S. would need a little more assistance from Japan after that somewhat questionable tactical decision in the last end opened the door for the U.S. to get 3. Now without Hammer, the Americans trying to find a way to put themselves in position
Tighter than half if you can.
to capitalize in the final end. Or can Japan end it right here?
U.S. putting up another guard here. It's critical when you're behind without the hammer that you keep some separation between the guards. Eventually, Japan's going to walk up and try and get rid of those guards, so you want to limit the possibility of a double peel. Japan choosing to throw their second rock through, being up 3. They don't need rocks in play. They don't need any rocks that the U.S. could use to their advantage.
The intern? Through the hole? Or into the guard? We almost want him to try to peel that corner guard off so we can play the intern to the lid.
Yeah.
Right? So
Well, it's there now.
Leave this nice and high.
Yeah.
That verbal preparation for Joe Polo. Now trying to deliver physically.
Waits there.
Top of the logo.
That was some great audio from Joe. It's just an example of that. While the skip manages the strategy for the game, everybody on the team needs to have an understanding of what's coming next, what we're trying to accomplish in the end.
It's good. I think we got to take a chance to go in there soon, though.
So now Japan will try and make some double peels here. Want to get as many of the U.S. stones off the sheet of ice as possible. There is a double available. 1, 2, and he gets all 3. That could be a game-ending shot.
A terrific triple for Japan. Well, 3s kind of have been wild for the Japanese with 3 ends where they got 3 points and now 3 stones removed.
That's just a great triple. Leaves no protection for the United States.
Tetsuro Shimizu
Half to tight.
with one of the shots of the game for Team Japan.
It's good, Colin. It's good. It's good.
And you can see now what that means. The free guard zone is no longer in effect, so Japan can just walk up and rip away at every U.S. stone that goes into play. That triple really doing a lot of damage. And he nearly misses the single peel, but he does get it off.
Now the difficult shots, the simple shots, they're all coming together for Japan. Back to Minnesota in a moment. This is a game of contrasts. It's been nicknamed both chess on ice and the roaring game, and somehow both of them ring true. Curling is mind and matter, ins and outs, freezes and burns, and you can see proof on the faces of nearly everyone who plays. Who will be roaring at the end of tonight's chess match, the United States or Japan? Japan 9, the United States 6, N7. Next to last end of this 8-end game at the end of the competition here on NBC Curling Night. And the United States really needs a miracle.
They do. Interesting there. Chris Ply's having to put some extra rotation on that stone because he felt like there was something under it. Did a really good job to get that rock away. You see how that's spinning there. That'll happen occasionally.
Caught a hair. Huh? You could feel the hair just under it.
Yeah, that's good.
You hear Chris Plies discussing it. Take another peek at what he did.
See the release here. He really cranks that stone around. Just trying to make sure that it gets down the ice. And a simple peel by the Japanese.
All right.
And we're getting down to a point now
95.
where the U.S. has to play into the rings. They're going to freeze to the Red Rock here. Try and get it lined up right on the nose. So it's hard for the Japanese team to remove it.
Where is it? You guys got it there?
Desperation time for the
You guys
U.S.
got it? Go.
Hard! Whoa, whoa, whoa.
Sit.
Get right next to it.
Okay.
Overswept that rock a little bit. Needed it to curl up and sit in front of the red stone. Again, Japan content to peel away.
Relatively simple assignment here for Shiyoshi Yamaguchi.
Makes the peel, rolls his shooter out. Important to roll away there. Didn't want to leave a pocket for the U.S. to freeze into.
Only the skip stones remaining.
We just want to hit it and try and steal 3.
Let's go under there. Little bites.
So Heath asking the question there. They could hit this rock and allow Japan to blank the end and think about trying to steal 3 in the 8th end. But they're going to go after the freeze again.
Same. Just freeze.
Just lock this rock right to the nose of the red one.
Hard! Are you behind it?
No.
Freeze it.
Need it to curl
Stop.
and sit down.
Okay.
All right.
Little tap. Not quite to the nose. Again, the critical thing about the freeze is getting
Count
your
that the whole way,
shooter
we just tick it.
to the nose of the red. You see the angle here. Japan can easily hit the yellow stone anywhere on the left side and get it to go out of play. They don't mind if they lose their own rock in the process. They're not looking to score multiples here. In fact, a score of 1 would probably seal the game for Japan.
You would expect concession from that point for the United States. Down 4 to the final end. We'll see how it plays out.
Just cleaning that rock. Peels it off cleanly, leaving his 1 stone in the 4-foot.
Now, Japan made a mistake in the last end to give the U.S. some life, but it's been clean here in this 7th end for the Japanese.
Yeah, I suspect that depending on the result of this stone, and it looks like Heath's made the decision to hit the Japanese rock,
Yeah, I'll just try and peel it out, but say.
assuming that the Japanese will just peel it and blank the end.
Chris doesn't know either.
Whoa.
Yep.
Whoa. Off.
We gotta get a piece.
We got this.
Get out.
This rock rolling away,
See, come here. Chris.
and I'm pretty sure that that was intentional on Heath's part based on the discussion before.
Feel it out.
They were assuming that Morozumi would just throw it through here, but it looks like Morozumi's actually going to take his point.
What's that?
He was drawn for one anyways. What?
Well, he's taking his one either way, right?
Maybe. We weren't sure.
Up 4?
Oh, 100%. I agree, but
Now the U.S. discussing.
maybe he'd throw it through would be a better chance than sticking anywhere and having him just hit the stick. Right?
An interesting point late in this game being down. But the assumption here by Morozumi is if he's up 4, handshakes are coming.
We'll see if that is the case.
This rock sliding in right to the forefoot. Almost on the button.
And that's good enough for the U.S. to concede. 10-6 will be the final. That single point Japan gets in the 7th ends it, but 3 threes the telling story for the Japanese. Couple of monster ends, and they grab the win. Back to wrap up NBCSN Curling Night in Minnesota. NBCSN Curling Night has been brought to you by the United States Olympic Committee. For the latest deals on official Team USA gear, visit TeamUSAShop.com. And by USA Curling and the Manhattan Curling Cup, coming to Chelsea Piers, New York this March. Last night of Curling Night, and not quite the night that the United States had hoped for. Japan with 3 big ends in the 1st, the 3rd, and the 5th. And they wrap it up in the 7th. A 10-6 win for the Japanese. Heath McCormick, the U.S. skip, ready to talk with Tracy Wilson.
Heath, final game of the tournament, not quite the ending you were looking for.
No, I mean, we were just on the wrong side of the inch. That game, literally within an inch, that game's totally different from the start. Sometimes that's just the way it goes, and unfortunately, I mean, kudos to them. They played really well. Especially once they got the lead. So, you know.
In general, overall, looking at the tournament, what can you and your teammates take away from this experience?
Yeah, it's a great experience for sure. I mean, really, that game right there was the only one we really should have lost. The other 2 that we lost, we were in control of and just kind of went the wrong way at the end. But overall, great experience. Playing these international teams will help us when we get to our nationals and then to the World Championships, hopefully. So as much as we can play them, all the better.
Thank you.
Thanks.
The only intrigue left, China and New Zealand. And the Chinese able to close out the Kiwis. And they've got the tiebreaker over Japan, so they get the title, John.
Yeah, that was a tighter game than I think any of us expected, and it came right down to the end. But China does get the title. Unfortunately for the United States, they could have been right in it.
How about the Chinese women? They certainly proved to be the class of the field on the women's side.
Yeah, it's a young Chinese squad, but they're very technically sound, and they come out on top on the women's side as well.
A look at the final standings for the women. China 5-1 in the top spot. Strong showing, too, for the United States women, John.
Yeah, it's a really good result for Nina and her girls. They played well all weekend, and similar to what Heath said, this international experience is going to bode well for them down the road.
So Nina Roth and the United States women in second. You look at the overall competitions. China combined 9-3, a pair of championships for the Chinese.
Yeah, it's a great result for them. They really, really played well here. I expect to see them do well at the world level. All of these teams playing pretty well all weekend.
Well, glad to have you along for NBCSN Curling Night. And John, for the United States, it's a new way of doing business and selecting teams for this high-performance effort. How do you think it played out?
Well, I think it went pretty well. They obviously still have some work to do. They have some gelling to do between both teams. But this international experience, these games are very, very important. when you get to the world level, having a head-to-head record against the exact teams that you're going to play eventually is a big deal.
And again, a change in philosophy for the United States as opposed to the players putting together their own teams. The United States coaching staff picking some of the best players, putting them together to try to allow the United States to have the top-level talent on the same team as possible. But at this competition, China reigns supreme. Hope you enjoyed our NBCSN Curling Night series throughout the winter here on NBCSN. For John Benson, Pete Fenson, Tracy Wilson, and our entire crew, this is Jason Knapp. We leave you with some sights and sounds for the competition here in Minneapolis. Good night from Curling Night.
Whoa!